Hi and welcome back to Spirit Lounge. I hope you guys are doing really well, and welcome back to a new chapter in our journey through the Upanishads. So let's crack on with that straight away without any further ado. Okay, so this one is, I'll bring it up on my screen, is Maya and Avidya, which is Maya is the creative force. It's called the magic or the power. And Avidya is ignorance. But actually in this chapter there is a lot more than just those two aspects, but these are the Sanskrit words for those things. So Avidya is ignorance, Vidya is wisdom without the A, and Maya is the creative force, the power of manifestation, if you like. So let's just walk straight into this. And again, this is a precursor to the Upanisads themselves, but these chapters go through a lot of what's in the Upanishads. It helps the precursor understanding, which is really going to help, rest assured. And it's a little frustrating not diving straight in. Okay, and as you know, the Vedas were comprised of 1200 to 400 B.C. and Upanishads were written as a latter writings, if you like, of those four initial Vedas, which are the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda. Okay, let's go straight in. So some of the terms that we're going to meet is Maya, which is magic or illusion, or the power of manifestation, the power that creates. Vidya is ignorance. Vidya is wisdom without the A, and Prakriti is nature. And you're going to hear a lot of this, so I put some precursors around each chapter so we can you can understand what they are before we meet them. But I tried to put in bracketed form what each of those mean every time we come upon them. Okay, the Katha Upanishads warns us not to find reality and certainty in the unrealities. This means it's not to attach and think that the world that we experience is real, not to find certainty in reality, i.e. absolute. Everything that we see is all that there is. The Chandogya Upanishads tells us that a covering of untruth hides from us the golden treasure hidden under it. So in other words, the physical hides the truth that is hidden beneath, or actually beyond it. And that beyond it is the unveiling of it from within ourselves. The Brahad Aranyaka, remember Aranyaka is that who writes in the forest. Isa Upanishads speak to unveiling of truth by a disc of gold and invoke the grace of God. Again, unveiling from within the disc of gold and invoke the grace of God is actually your divine spirit, the spark of light within you, or the breath of the divine within all things animate, inanimate, and inanimate, which we're going to come on to later actually. Grace of God for removing the veil being the veil of ignorance, the veil that we put on ourselves actually for the most part, but is imposed upon us from the moment where we're given birth to in this earth. We're told what the reality is through our parents, our communities, our friends, and then of course once upon we start school, we're taught the physical is all that there is, and we're not taught anything beyond that unless we seek it from our own spiritual journey, which sometimes is sprung upon a religion we may be following upon birth or birth into, so to speak. The Sarvepalli Upanishads states we can achieve the cessation of the great world illusion by the worship of God. This is really talking about the going within. The worship of God is pursuing the truth of spirit, which we can call God, because we are fractals of God, the divine Father, the grace, the breath of creation. Distinction would become one of utter opposition between God and the world. The latter, which is the world, is reduced to an evil dream, which is talking about the world is an illusionary thing. It's not our beginning, not our middle, not our end. We're not of this universe and we're not from this universe. So it becomes what is described as a dream, an evil dream, which is distracting us from the pure beauty of grace, that which we are, which is what experience in the world is supposed to be driving us to go to, because of the fact that the world and its multiplicity this abstraction and duality that we experience here, is to drive us back to that divine infinite grace that it's supposed to be, but it needs to be that from within us first. The Brahman, which is, remember, the pure consciousness, so below the absolute, which is the absolute all, the divine, the Godhead, whatever you wish to call it, below there's the pure consciousness that emanates from it, which is actually what our divine spirit is, pure consciousness. Is apprehended in two ways: absolute and the personal God. So it's apprehended by the pursuit of the divine and the personal God, which is the one that we pursue through that journey. Our real soul, when it rises, knows itself to be related to the single universal consciousness, i.e. we understand that through our journey that we are a single universal consciousness, even though we are experiencing uniqueness in life ourselves. The withdrawal from the world is not the conclusive end of the spiritual conquest. This is very true. So the withdrawal from the world is talking about detachment and attachment. This is a Buddhist principle as well, where we're supposed to detach from material, from matter things. When we attach to those, the world and the matter orientated aspects of life, we cannot then perceive what's beyond it. So this could also be mind, intellectual ego, virtuous self-righteousness, springing from the need to be seen to be good, to be very good, to be a good and right and a stand-up person. These are physical ego expressions of ourselves. If we have all of this, including the physical, we don't relate to anything but the physical things of ourselves, including our very base desire instincts. We will not move into the spiritual aspects of ourselves, which is what this is saying. When the soul rises and we understand a single universal consciousness, the withdrawal from the world is not the conclusive end of the spiritual conquest, because once we've detached and gone on our spiritual journey, there is an infinite beyond that. We can never ever cease becoming. It's constant. But the first passage of it is to become beyond this matter realm that we experience. World has to be redeemed, and it can be. This is redeemed through ourselves. It has its source in God and final refuge in God, which is true. The divine is in everything. The refuge of our physical experience or humanity is also in the divine, i.e. the realization of it, and making this earth plane, this humanity, a vibration of grace itself, which is really what this is saying. Which actually, remember, the Gnostic texts were also saying the same thing. Duality, which is good and bad, fear, evil and love, grace and lack of grace, those kind of things. It's the opposites. Duality is not admitted to be absolutely real. It isn't. Duality is real because it's a possibility and probability of what we can manifest, but it's not real because it's not a manifestation of grace itself. It's a duality that exists because of our creation. So it's not absolutely real in that respect. The Maitreya Upanishads state the absolute is compared to a spark. The assertion, so a spark of thought, because everything that exists comes from thought, which is the transmutation of energy into matter through intention. Attention is a thought is an intention. You can swap those around, but they transmute energy, which is the base form of everything, into a manifested state. The assertion that with the knowledge of self all is known. Atharva Upanishads asserts that the universe is founded in consciousness and guided by it. Absolutely, we've talked about this. Assumes the reality of the universe. World has its roots in Brahman, which is pure consciousness. Of course, everything has its roots in pure consciousness. The world is neither pure Brahman, which is pure conscious, neither Brahman, one with Brahman, or wholly other than Brahman. World of fact cannot be apart from the world of being. So this is saying that the world of fact is the matter, the world of being is the spiritual. They're not really separated. They are together because they are all within the supreme or pure consciousness or the absolute. Maya, which is the power, states that Brahma, or the power of force, states that Brahman is the basis of the world, or consciousness, or pure consciousness, i.e. the intention of the absolute, the divine, is the basis of the world, which is true because it's a thought expression of it. Brahman is the root cause of the universe. Yes, everything has consciousness. The divine is a consciousness of which, or an awareness. It's a being, a state, it exists. You can't really describe it as anything. These words are just words, really. They're not. Brahman is more than just consciousness. We describe ourselves as consciousness, but we are way more than that. We are all things, and consciousness is just an aspect of all things. We are in an infinite state of everything, and that's not just consciousness. It's a very new age thing to just keep saying consciousness all the time, but it's a way that we relate to it, but we are way more than just consciousness. Brahma is the root of the cause of the universe. To regard it as final, or the world, is an act of ignorance. So it's saying that the world isn't the only expression of the absolute, of the divine. It's just an expression of it, and a vibrational frequency of all possibility, universal probability. And that is true. There is much more beyond this physical world. Even in this universe, there is much more beyond this physical world and life, animate and inanimate, conscious, not unconscious, spiritual, non-spiritual. There is many more forms of life, energetic and physical forms of life beyond this small sphere in the infinite of the eternal universe that exists, that's always expanding. The world is the creation of God. The finite is the self-limitation. The finite means restriction, is self-limitation. No finite can exist in and by itself. So it's saying there can't be a limitation unless there's something beyond that, a non-limiting force beyond it, in which that limitation exists, because the infinite cannot be limited, of course. If it exists by the infinite, which we've just stated, pure consciousness or dynamic consciousness. So pure consciousness is that of the absolute, dynamic consciousness is that which creates. It's the consciousness of the universe as well, which is manifesting things, expanding constantly. Remember, everything is aware of itself, has an intention and a thought, and uses universal law to expand and manifest. The universe itself is also consciousness, and every fractal going inward, even to the subatomic particle, is also conscious, aware of itself. That which creates, it presents simultaneously, so everything comes together at the same time. The Chandogya Upanishads states Brahma is defined as Tajalan, or as that gives rise to, which is gives rise to is Ja and absorbs. As that is Tat, gives rise to is Ja and absorbs is Li, which is kind of the word which gives rise to and sustains the world. Worlds comes from Brahman, which is absolute, Brahman, pure consciousness, and returns to pure consciousness, which is the absolute. The imperishable arises here, the universe. Many kinds of beings issue forth from the immutable. So of course, all things are manifest from the immutable. I hope you guys can actually hear me. I don't want to make a mistake here. Universe before its manifestations. Let me just quickly check. You can. Yes, it's on. Sorry about that. The imperishable arises. Where was I here? I've lost my way there. God does not create the world, but becomes it. Or rather, I would say that the world is to become divine and a divine expression, because it is an emanation of it, but the vibration and frequency from which we experience is not divine, and that's our own creation for doing so. It needs to become and return back to a divine frequency. Creation is expression, which is correct. It is not making something from nothing. It is self-projection. So this is true. Everything exists in the secret abode of the Supreme. It's self-projection. Our lives are a self-projection of ourselves. Our communities, our families are a self-projection of those in the family. The community is a self-projection of those in the community, and every action, word, thought, intention is also the same thing. Countries, nations, worlds, solar systems, galaxies, universes are expressions of expression, creations of expression. They are vibrating a frequency of energy, and the experience in it will be a determination of what that is from the sum of all of its parts. So this is true. Absolute is all possibility, all probability, and all unexpressed. So it's saying that it's everything in the absolute, the supreme, the Godhead has all possibility in it, all probability in it, and all unexpressed probability and possibility in it. In other words, all that is, can be, ever can be, may never be an expressed thought that never may come into expressible, realized experience. Source of its own is a source of its own motion and change. This is the absolute. Okay, Sarvepalli Upanishads mentions a view of creation to time, to nature, to necessity, to chance, to elements, to the person or combination, and it describes God as Mayan, the wonder-working, powerful being. Divinity makes a likeness of the eternal prototypes. So the prototypes, archetypes, as we've discussed in the Gnostic text, and so are the demigods within Hinduism, or within the Vedas themselves, or in the Upanishads. These are also prototypes or archetypes, or ideas inherent in his nature. Maya is the power of Ishvara. Remember, Ishvara is the Supreme Lord. This is there's four folds. There's the Absolute. There is the Brahman, pure consciousness. There is the Ishvara. And there is also the, I forget the name, there's a fourth one, which is the manifesting force. So the Ishvara is the, the fourth one is the Hiranya Garbha, which is the world soul. So the absolute Brahma, pure consciousness, Ishvara is the third, the Supreme Lord, and Hiranya Garbha is the world soul. So you'll see this fourfold nature of the absolute, and this is what it is. Maya is the power of Ishvara, and formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into him a living soul. This is very, very similar to the demiurge and the archons creating life from Adam and Eve, from the material aspects of the world that was created. This is and then breathed into the living soul. Well, that was Sophia Barbello came down and breathed the breath of the divine into that moving physical that was the Adam, and then animated it. And the demiurge didn't recognize Adam after that. It wasn't the physical, didn't recognize the force that was within him, because the demiurge didn't put it there. The world is treated as an appearance. It is the creation of Ishvara, which is the Supreme Lord, who has the power of manifestation. Maya is that which measures out, i.e. the manifesting force, the power, the magic, molds forms in the formless. God has control over Maya, of course, because Maya is just an expressive creative force of the Absolute. We also have Maya. All of us have Maya, and a magical expressive force that we then push forward through expressed energy through thought and intention. Ishvara has power of manifestation and non-manifestation. Brahma is pure consciousness, which is prior to Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, which is with the fourfold nature. Okay, the world, far from being unreal, is intimately connected with divine reality. This complex, evolving universe is a progressive manifestation, which it is. It talks about things are constantly changing, constantly evolving, constantly expanding, unceasing expansion. So it's from matter, which is anna in Sanskrit, to spiritual freedom, which is ananda. So it's matter, which is all conscious of itself, which is aware of its expression, aware of its movement outward, which is called spiritual freedom. It does express, it's us as humans through our ego intellect, which are restricting ourselves. We have lost that spiritual freedom. It's the purpose of cosmic evolution is to reveal the spirit underlying it, which is true, or within us. It's the reconnection. So the purpose of all matter is to understand spiritual freedom by revealing the spirit that underlies all things. And in our respects is that which is within us, and reconnecting ourselves with the divine. And I took the rest out of the remaining out of the book, and I wrote this in in the chapter called The Universe within the book that I've written. So there are many theories around how the universe was created. So the Big Bang states the singular explosion, or what's called catastrophism, which relates to a sudden releasing of neutrons, electrons and protons in physical measurable things of the universe. These then combined over time, which is called gradualism, creating light and cosmic bodies. Light is determined to have shone 380,000 years after the Big Bang. Cosmic light is microwave background, which is CMB. The Big Bang suggests the universe was created over a linear timeline. Now, both this can be also true, because we're saying the universe, that the divine thought the universe into intention. Through intention and thought, manifests the universe through a direction of force or maya into the universe, creating that through a consciousness and embedding within it pure consciousness. Through this, divine laws manifest the creation of this universe. This is including karma as well. And so that could be a gradualism comes into play of then these forces manifesting intention of the divine into being. This could be linear because that's how we measure it. We measure it as linear, i.e. we see things as coming over one at a time. So cosmic bodies are created by a slow, gradual coalescing of neutrons, electrons, protons, subatomic particles, quantum physics, and create cosmic bodies, and therefore life and so forth. But there is another approach to this, because these things can also all be true. Externalism is a philosophical approach to nature of time, stating all points in time are equally real. Block presentism states only the present is real. Block universe theory states the past and present are real and the future is not real yet because it isn't experienced. B theory suggests time is an illusion, with past, present and future being equally real, and that time has no origin in subjective. We're getting closer to the center of source with this. What if all are real and formed in perception of movement, and events are occurring in the now as sequential simultaneity, which is what we suggest. Past, present and the future are real and not real. The past, present and future are present in the now. The universe is manifested through a sudden expression, which is divine expression, not necessarily an explosion of matter or an explosion of force from nothing. Well, there is a void. I've expressed that my feeling of the divine is actually a void of pure feeling and awareness, consciousness, light, force, intention, energy, pure energy of all things. This expressed out with an intention to manifest itself within all things is also could be called catastrophism. It then coalesces out as gradualism as we measure it. But all things could be true. It could be in sequential simultaneity, i.e. all of these things are true but happening in this very moment. Every moment is in the now. There is no time. It is all sequentially in the now, but we perceive it all in physical form as happening in sequential linear events. So therefore, this is where time comes in. As you move further out in expression, spiritual expression throughout into the universe, time becomes less and less real. So all of these aspects are real. None of them are uniquely factual. They are all aspects of reality. I've written more than this in the book, but this is an extract from it. Okay, the Katha Upanishads, sorry, I'm just going to check this again. The Katha Upanishads, Supreme Lord experiences the results of deeds. So our actions, words, thoughts and intentions, the divine also does. So this is saying that we are aspects of the divine, and it experiences all that is through us, through everything animate, inanimate, not just us, of course. There is much more than us in this universe, or rather human bodies. So the divine experiences everything through what we do in our actions, words, thoughts and intentions. It's the expression of force, energy. Intimate connection between God and the world of souls. The absolute is not a metaphysical abstraction of a void of silence. I believe at its core it is a void of silence. It doesn't. Now this is saying it's a void of silence that does nothing. That I agree with. But it's a void of silence and presence in which everything is manifested, of the world of manifestation is expelled from it, or expresses from it. It is the absolute of this relative world of manifestation. I would say the world of manifestation is an expression of the absolute. The absolute is not an expression, not an outcome of the world of manifestation. The opposite is true. Change and growth in the real world, yes it is. It reaches fulfillment in the world of the absolute, yes. So I agree with that. So the previous statements can be interpreted different ways. The beyond is not an annulling of the world of becoming, but its transfiguration through spirit. Yes, that's true. World where, if the world were unreal, it cannot progress from the unreal to the real. So it's saying that the world is not just an illusion or some creation of things or life within it. It's an expression. It is real because we experience it as real. It is a thought intention of the divine. It's there through universal force, through intention. Ultimately, the universe exists through intention. But it's perception. It's through perception. It's real as we experience it. But it's not real because it's not our origin. It's not our middle nor end. So therefore, I call it unreal because it is not our home. It's just a place. It's the realm. It's an experiment, if you call it, to see what life will become, what it will be together. What are we going to be integrated together? Are we going to live separate? Are we going to detach from the supreme force that's behind it all? Are we going to feel that the physical is all there is? It's an experiment, ultimately, if we think of it that way. And we can determine ourselves whether or not it's a success, or becoming a success, or otherwise. So ignorance of mind, which is the intellectual ego, and the senses and human life are the material of that being for its unfolding. So we are here expressing through our senses, our material being, our mind, intellectual ego, and unfolding that experience of it. Ultimate reality sustains the play of the world. In other words, animates it through the spiritual breath. Why we are unable to measure, which is why we are able to measure the distance of things of the world from the absolute. So this is basically saying the fact that the spiritual exists and we are somewhat aware that something exists is why we are able to contemplate that there is something between this world of matter and the realm of the absolute. There's something there. We all feel it. We know it intrinsically within us. Even the most blind will come to this. Even a smidgen of their energy will come to this realization, and that is because it exists. We wouldn't understand. We wouldn't have a feeling that something exists if it does not. That's what this is saying. Nothing is not lit up by God. Even material objects which lack intelligence to discover nature are emanations of creative energy. True, animate or inanimate, conscious or unconscious as we deem them through mind expression, all have divine spark and life within them. And we are not coerced into this journey. It's by the exercise of his choice, which is free will, that the world is real as based on Brahman. So it's through free will we embark upon the journey. We are not coerced in any way. But the nudging of the spirit, that nudges, it pushes constantly to be realized, to be recognized. And when we recognize it through free will, we decide to understand what that silent voice is how we then understand that the real world is based on Brahman, pure consciousness, and the absolute. It is unreal by itself, only real as it experience as matter, which is Anna. Okay, we are aspiring to become completely real, or the world is aspiring to become completely real. The Chandogya Upanishads rejects the world as non-being. From its all existence was produced. So it's saying that the world is a conscious and aware of itself. It's a spiritual thing. A non-being states that it's just simply matter. It's ignorant matter. Well, it is that, which is called non-being. But it's saying the world rejects that the world is non-being. It isn't. It's aware of itself. It's conscious. It has pure divine breath in every aspect of it. So therefore, it's true. It is of being. And then from it, things are produced. And in the beginning of this world was just being. This is a quote from it. In the beginning this world was just being, one only without a second. This means aware, a conscious spirit within, therefore it is being. The Supreme is described as Kavi, which is a maker or creator. Brahma Sutra, which is a Sanskrit text, another text, states the creation of the world as an act of lila or play. It was an act of play by the divine. Change is the pervading feature of the world. It implies non-existence, not constantly present. Mortality is imprinted on all beings who are subject to decay. It reaches in fulfillment in absolute. So he's saying that the world, the pervading feature of the world is that it's constantly in change, therefore it is not persistent. It is not constant, which is what the absolute is constant, the divine spirit is constant. Therefore, it has mortality because things in it constantly are moving. Remember, through creation, preservation, and destruction, which are the three main deities in the Vedas. Maya, which is the force or magic power, is for Prakriti, which is nature. Maya creates, the force creates nature, which is the principle for creation. All nature movement is aspiring to the next highest stage. This is up to interpretation. This is saying that a lower spiritual form is a blade of grass. An ant has a spiritual being, but it's constantly wishing to be the next layer of next level of conscious insect life, or potentially the next form of life above it. That could be a bird, whatever we want to feel that physical form is manifested from. We can interpret that, or we can just state that a blade of grass was meant to be a blade of grass, therefore it has a consciousness within it to express itself within the limitations of a blade of grass. It's not therefore seeking to be something greater, because it just is what it was intended to be. It's fulfilled a niche or a place within the balance of manifestation as a whole. Therefore, it was always meant to be a blade of grass. Consciousness within humanity could have always been expressed to be humanity. It was manifest to be a human form of consciousness, which is aware, able to express itself within the vessel in much greater forms and contemplates its reality and its existence, because that was what it was meant to be. Not that we were a dog or a cat before. So it's up to you guys to determine what you believe is, what you feel within your heart stage is the movement of spirit. Are we moving through grades of form to suddenly become absolute? Or are we always being spiritual force of more higher consciousness forms? And a blade of grass is always meant to be a blade of grass, because that's what it was intended to become. It doesn't aspire to be something greater than itself, but maybe it does. This is up to you guys to determine. Even matter is Brahman, which is pure consciousness. Again, yes, everything has the divine breath in it. Even if it is a subatomic particle, has divine breath in it. It's aware of itself. If you look at the split, the quantum split experiment, I think it's called. It's in my book as well. I explain how subatomic particles fired through a slit, when observed, don't just make a finite line, a straight line going through this split. They actually express out different places when observed. Prakriti, which is nature, is a demand of thought than a fact of existence. Exactly. It's an expression of thought and intention. Prakriti is nature, is said to be the Maya, which is force and power of God. Individual soul is bound by Maya in a sense of ignorance. We must tear the cosmic veil. Of course, this is saying we are dropping in here and becoming ignorant. Remember, we don't come here ignorant. We are made this way. We are made to detach very, very quickly from our environment. Okay, Prakriti nature is the realm of Hiranyagarbha. So Hiranyagarbha is the fourth of the fourfold nature, which is the one that acts in the waters, which is the world's soul. Hiranyagarbha or Brahma sends sounds by ecstatic dance and the world evolves. So it's saying, remember it did say that the world has a sound, the universe has a sound of the divine in it, which is Om. This is the sound of the universe, which has a resonance, and when that hits, which has a vibration, when it hits an opposing force, which is another level of vibration and frequency through intention or perception of matter, it creates matter, and then the world, things are evolving from this manifesting sound. Manifestation of the real infinite is nameless, for it includes all names. In the Nagamadi, it also talked about things being names, all things and spirits and fractals. So names are all things, all spiritual fractals of the divine. The Isa Upanishads states basic reality is the one, it's a derivative, it's the reality of the many. The Kena Upanishads says Brahma is the mind of the mind, the ultimate supreme mind, life of the life. The world is an imperfect representation. The world depends on Brahman and not Brahman on the world. So the Brahman is not dependent on anything because it's pure consciousness, but the world depends on pure consciousness for its manifestation, intent and thought. God, and this is a Arabic dictum which is I really liked, which is God is a rabbinic dictum, which is the Jewish one, which is God is the dwelling place of the universe, but the universe is not the dwelling place of God. Very true. There are three states of say awareness. This is waking, which could be awakened, or the self or matter. This is where we start to there is waking, and there is dream, and there is deep sleep. So deep sleep is also regarded as, it could be in the Gnostics, deep sleep was regarded as that those who are lost, who are detached from spirit. But in the Vedas, I believe they reference the deep sleep as that which is connecting to the spirit, the opposite actually of what the Gnostics describe it as, which is true self. And the dream state is where we are pure physical beings, if you like, and the waking is the realm in between the dream state and the deep sleep state. The deep sleep state being full spiritual awakening, the deepest aspects of ourselves. The dream is we only see physical manifestation. The waking state is where we see physical manifestation and that which is also not manifest, which is moving through that left and the right, the material, the psychical, and the spiritual, which in the Gnostics they describe that. So this is this very similar thing. If you look at that in this way, they're saying very similar things, but describing them in different ways. The Upanishads, the waking state and the dream state are distinct. Dream state are illusionary. We perceive only objects, which is what we said, which is the matter state of us. Not so those of waking experience, which exist in perception or not when we perceive them. This is saying that we perceive the objects, but also we start to understand things that we do not perceive as objects. Okay, Avidya, which is the source of delusion. Avidya is delusion, Vidya is wisdom. The Katha Upanishad speaks of people living in ignorance, thinking themselves wise and wandering in search of reality. Is the blind leading, following the blind. And they say if Vidya, wisdom, is lodged, they would easily have seen the truth, which is true. Avidya is more subjective, which is true. So ignorance is subjective. Nobody's going to say they're ignorant, because the ego, mind, and intellectual selves will say that we are wise, we are clever, we are knowledgeable, we have knowledge and intellect. Those don't bring wisdom, and they do not bring spiritual awareness. These are knowledge, intellect, absorption of information is not wisdom. It is not spiritual awareness. This creates what's called ignorance. When you have a subjective avidya, which is ignorance, you will see yourself not ignorant. So therefore it creates what's called egos as final and fundamental. Builds egos, which sees what it thinks as final and fundamental, and everything else and everyone else's view is incorrect. And such a view falsifies the truth, which is true. It creates its own truth, doesn't accept there is anything beyond what that believes it to be true, or what science, technology, or the physical aspects of life deem to be true. It says multiplicity is out there. If we look upon it as self-existing cosmos, it is an error. It conceals the full nature of the real. Avidya breeds selfishness and is a knot in the heart. What that really means is that if we're living in the mind, ego mind, we will not touch the spirit because the spirit is around the heart space. It creates a knot, which we have to undo. The Prajna Upanisads says, cannot reach the world of Brahma unless we have shaken off the crookedness in us, which is really the detachment, the ignorance within us, or the attachment to the physical. The falsehood, which is antram, the illusion, maya, in us. Let us not put our trust in the things of this world. Maya, which is the false and creative power, is not concerned not with existence of the world, but with its meaning. Passages in the Upanishads which make out that the world is an appearance. It's something that we experience, in other words, while reality is pure being. If we concentrate attention on Brahman, which is the absolute consciousness and the absolute, we feel the world is not independent of Brahman, which is pure consciousness, but rests within it. Pure power of creation is called Maya. Prakriti is nature. Hiranyagarbha is subject to time because that is the creation through the waters of manifestation. The Supreme is this fourfold character, which remember is the Absolute, the Brahma consciousness, the Ishvara, which is the Supreme Lord, if you like, and the Hiranyagarbha, which is the world soul, or that is the waters of manifestation, which contain Maya, which is the power of manifestation, and Prakriti, which is nature, or that which is also creating things, and obviously the physical is the world. And so that is the end of that chapter, which I thought was quite interesting. I hope you found it interesting yourselves. Remember, we are here to become this ourselves. All of these texts will state this. It's for us to become what it is we are seeking externally, for a saviour to come to us and put us into this dream world, this wonderful nirvana. It's for us to create the nirvana through ourselves, and then through that our actions, words, thoughts and intentions will manifestly change what the physical experience out there between us and everyone else. And therefore the world will change, which is what we have to become, that, and not just practice it for our own personal means. We have to become spiritual beings, in other words. We have to become these divine Brahma within us to do so. And again, there's the book that I have up there on Amazon. If you wish to partake in that, it's also an ebook as well. And any suggestions, guidance, or questions that you may have that you feel I can help with, contact me on through these social media, or through the email, thespiritlounge333@gmail.com. Okay, let's just put the... Okay, so thank you again for listening to this. I do appreciate your time, because I know it's precious, and I try to make these videos not too long. I don't know how long I've been going, 45 minutes now, which is not